Here.
Director Colson.
Here.
Director DeWitt.
Here.
Director Lewis.
Here.
Director Triani. Director McGallis. We have a quorum of 5 present, 2 absent. If the record would also show that Directors Fraga, Fuentes, Hobson, Melvin, Ross, and Chairman Dillard are also present at this time.
Thanks, Audrey. Item number 2 is approval of the minutes from the meeting held on August 25th, 2016. Any corrections or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Director Triani, second by Director Lewis. Will you please call the roll?
Sure. Director Buchanan.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Aye.
Director DeWitt.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Aye.
Director Triani. 5 ayes and 2 absent.
Thank you. Item 3A, report on the monthly financial results for July 2016. B.
Thank you, Director. I have Eva De Laurentiis joining me today. She's one of our financial analysts. So today we're going to review the year-to-date financial results through July 2016. In general, favorable expense results continue to more than offset unfavorable operating revenue. About 7,300 jobs were added in the Chicago area in July, while the regional labor force shrunk by about 10,000 individuals. This resulted in a decrease in the regional unemployment rate to 5.6%. But keep in mind that the national unemployment rate has held steady at 4.9%. Ridership, which is what you're looking at here now, continues to be a main area of concern. Current year-to-date system ridership is 3.2% lower than budget, as shown by the orange bars on the chart. July ridership decreased by 8.2% versus prior year. Ridership has tracked below 2015 levels every month since March. The loss of a weekday accounted for about 2 points of this year-over-year decline. For the year, RTA system ridership is down about 2.8% from 2015. Let's look at the ridership summary now. All of the service boards continue to see ridership below budgeted levels. Unfavorable ridership variances range from 1.1% for Metra to 4.6% for PACE, highlighted in red. PACE ADA and CTA ridership results are also highlighted in red due to their unfavorable performance. Low gas prices are definitely impacting ridership. The average price of gas was $2.50 per gallon in July, compared to $3.07 per gallon a year ago. This was the lowest July gas price level since 2005. Operating revenue was $5.9 million, or 0.9% unfavorable to budget, due to, again, the unfavorable ridership and also the lower level of state reduced fare funding being reported by the service boards. The state passed a stopgap bill budget in June, which appropriated $17.6 million to the service boards for the reduced fare reimbursement program. But this funding, again, is 50% lower than the budgeted amount of $34 million. PACE Suburban Service operating revenue is 8.9% unfavorable, highlighted in red, due to the shortfall in the reduced fare reimbursement, compounded by lower than budgeted fare revenue and advertising income. ADA paratransit was 11.1% unfavorable due to unfavorable fare revenue and the timing of Medicaid reimbursements. Let's look at public funding. It is slightly unfavorable for Metro and PACE Suburban Service due to slightly unfavorable sales tax. CTA's public funding results are favorable to budget due to strong real estate transfer tax and favorable sales tax. They are highlighted in light blue. July results projected sales tax results for June 2016, and it grew by 2.3% over June 2015. I know that's a little confusing, but sales tax receipts for the city of Chicago are performing stronger in the suburbs and collar counties, which is why sales tax results are favorable for CTA and slightly unfavorable for Metro and PACE. Now let's look at operating expenses. Through July, they were $42.4 million, or 2.8% 2.8% favorable to budget, with each service board reporting favorable results to budget year to date. More than 1/3 of this favorable variance is attributable to low fuel prices. Fuel savings total $14.9 million for the system year to date. PACE Suburban Service expense performance was 7.3% favorable to budget year-to-date, highlighted in light blue. The result is driven by fuel and operations savings of $4.6 million and $2.4 million. PACE also had a significant favorable variance in administration. ADA's paratransit 10% favorable expense performance is being driven by lower purchase transportation, fuel, and administrative expenses. Also, PACE continues to realize lower ADA paratransit trips costs due to improved terms in their most recent service provider contracts. At the regional level, favorable operating expenses and public funding more than offset the unfavorable operating revenue, producing a year-to-date net result which is $51.7 million favorable to budget. So Metro, PACE, Suburban Service, and ADA Paratransit each have favorable net result variances in excess of 3%, highlighted in light blue, primarily good to good expense performance. Metro recorded a favorable recovery ratio for the year-to-date, while CTA PACE and PACE ADA Paratransit were slightly unfavorable to budget. The fare revenue recovery ratio of 37.4, which includes fare passenger revenue only, so the pure fare recovery ratio. When you add ancillary service board revenue, the recovery ratio increases to 43.6% through July, and that's labeled as all revenue in that column. On the right, we show the statutory recovery ratio labeled with credits and compared to budget. This recovery ratio stood at 50.8% through July, so 1 percentage point above budget, and it's coming in above 50% for the second consecutive month, which is expected with a little bit higher revenue and lower expense summer months. So each service board has a favorable variance in operating deficit. Metro, PACE, and ADA Paratransit all exceeded 3%. The combined regional operating deficit was $36.5 million, or 4.1% favorable. That concludes our remarks. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments? Director Lewis?
B, I think you mentioned this before, but there is a seasonality aspect. So as we get into the fall months, because there's a lot of softness with people not being in school, we'll probably see some of these numbers normalize out. Is that a correct statement?
We will see them increase as we continue through the summer months as well as into the fall. I don't know that we'll be at the levels we were at before. We'll have to see. But they will, seasonal variances definitely go up in the summer and into the fall.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Chairman?
Just one. Obviously, gas prices at some point in time are going to go up. And I hope the service boards, and our message from us to the service boards is continue to, to really ratchet down your expenses. I think they're relying a lot on decreasing fuel prices, but they need to continue to plan, because at some point in time, gas prices are going to go back up. It's a fluid, it's a fluid situation. Maybe the Cubs clinched already. A little breaking report.
Hey.
But stay on them, B, and remind them that
You know what?
they've been lucky.
They're very conservative in their budget projections, and we'll see their budgets. You will see their budgets coming before you in December. Yes, and it can't stay like that forever. So they're very conservative in their budgeting, and as you can see, and very good at controlling their expenses. So, while ridership is down, they're very much controlling their expenses.
Just make sure they control their expenses other than just fuel prices. I mean, I guess that's my
Correct.
point.
And they are.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to tie this back to the advertising campaign that we have on, and I don't know if it's possible to separate out the effect, the positive effect that in theory the advertising is having versus the negative effect on ridership that the fuel is having, but it would be nice if that type of an analysis could be done so we know which has the larger impact on overall ridership and make a better decision when that advertising may come around for renewal.
We certainly have fuel expenses and costs, but We certainly aren't measuring ridership, at least in terms of the finance group, so we'd have to talk to our planning and marketing group.
Very good, thank you. Okay, moving along, item 4A are the ordinances authorizing the quarterly capital amendment for the second quarter of 2016. Jill Leary.
Actually, Donna's going to actually handle it for today.
Yeah. Good morning, Director DeWitt and other members of the Finance Committee. I will be presenting the third quarter capital amendment this morning. My presentation will give an overview of major funding and project changes as requested by the service boards. And we are also requesting your approval of a second ordinance to provide time extensions on several ICE-funded projects. First, let's look at the proposed changes in the sources of funding. As you can see from this chart, we have included requested funding changes to both the current 2016 year program and also the out years 2017 through 2020, where CTA has realigned major portions of its funding related to the Red Purple Modernization Project, or RPM. As this chart shows at the bottom of the first column, the total funding change to the 2016 program is actually a decrease in funding of $133 million, and this is driven by the reduction of $173 million in CTA bonds for the Red Purple Modernization Initiative, but it's offset with the addition of $1.65 million in federal funds, $27 million in service board and local funds, and $10 million in deobligation and carryover funds. The increase of $1.65 million in federal funds is due to a Federal Unified Work Program, or UWP, grant for $400,000 and a Transit-Oriented Development Planning grant associated with the RPM initiative for $1.25 million. The $27 million increase in service board and local funds consists of a CTA match to the UWP grant and other CTA and PACE local funds. And the $10.9 million increase in deobligation and carryover funds is associated with the reprogramming of positive budget variance funds for PACE for some of their capital projects. In the second half of the table, for the out years of the program, all the changes are related to the Phase 1 of CTA's Red Purple Modernization Project. There is a significant increase of $1.18 billion in federal funds from a core capacity grant of $556 million and a federal TIFIA loan of $622 million. The $84.8 million increase in service board and local funds is associated with the reprogramming of positive budget variance funds, and the $48 million increase in service board bond proceeds is associated with the reprogramming of some of those funds that we saw decreasing in 2016 from CTA bonds. So the total growth in the program in the out years is $1.3 billion. This slide takes a look at the overall capital funding amendment request and breaks it down by service board. The result as shown is $145 million funding increase for CTA, funding decrease, for CTA in 2016, and an out year $1.3 billion increase. For PACE, there is a $12.7 million increase in 2016, and there's no changes for MECTRA. Next, we'll look at some of the projects and how these funding sources have funded various projects. This slide outlines the project changes for CTA by their funding source. Projects include CTA's capital programming force account activities and the undertaking of a transit-oriented development plan for the RPM initiative. In the second section with CTA funds, the midlife rehab of the 3200 series rail cars, construction of a bus turnaround at 63rd and Lakefront, Oracle system upgrades, and the lease of Ventra equipment. And then finally, we see the decrease of $173 million in CTA bonds, which is the result of CTA needing less of their bond proceeds to fund the RPM initiative due to the anticipated award of a federal core capacity grant and the TIFIA loan. This slide reviews the changes to CTA's RPM program over the 5-year period. Phase 1 of the RPM initiative is a $2 billion plus initiative comprised of 2 major components, the Red Purple Bypass Project and the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr Modernization Project. This section of the CTA rail system is nearing 100 years old and has had a 40% jump in ridership during the rush hour over the last 5 years. It can no longer handle any additional trains to meet growing demand. The project benefits include a faster, smoother ride as a result of new track, bridges, viaducts, and signal upgrades, less crowding and more frequent service as a result of wider and longer platforms, elimination of bottlenecks, and signal upgrades, and modern, comfortable, and accessible stations. As this slide shows, the initiative will be funded by reducing CTA's overall bonding requirements by $124 million and increasing the federal funds in the out years by $1.18 billion. So this is very significant for CTA. The federal fund increase will be comprised of a $622 million TIFIA loan and a $921 million full funding grant agreement that will pledge $556 million of core capacity discretionary funds in the out years of this capital program and another $365 million in the later years beyond this five-year capital program. For PACE, we have a requested $12.7 million funding increase, and that will go toward 3 projects. $8.4 million will be used to fund the Barrington Road I-90 pedestrian bridge, $3.3 million to purchase 5 express route coach buses, and $1 million for the design and engineering of a park and ride lot in Plainfield. And then finally, the second ordinance for your approval today will extend the completion time period by 1 year for several ICE-funded projects. CTA is requesting the extension for their real-time arrival bus sign project, and Metra has 2 requests, one for the Regional Fare Solutions Technology Project, and the second for the installation of electrical outlets on Metra's passenger rail cars. So that concludes my presentation. I just wanted to note for you that you also, with your handouts, got a revised Schedule 2A, and this will be the schedule that you'll be approving today with your ordinance. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Very good. Director Colson.
What is an anticipated federal TIFIA loan? Does that mean they're hoping for it, or they've applied, or what stage is that? So is it something we can count on?
I think that, yeah, they've applied for it, and it hasn't been officially granted yet, but I think they are far enough along in the process. The process goes through several steps.
Five ayes and 2 absent.
Very good. Any additional items from finance? Very good. If there's no further business to come before the public session of this finance committee, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Director Lewis, seconded by Director Triani. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.